Hear that? It's SpringFest savings calling your name, only at Lowe's. Right now, get a free Select Ego 56-volt battery when you buy a Select Ego trimmer, blower, or mower. Plus, get your choice of any 2 bags of Miracle-Gro organic soil mix for only $16. Shop these can't-miss deals in-store or online today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 4/2. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Excludes Hawaii.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
Despite Cale's encouragement, Selena is unable to stand and fight Cain, as she is plagued by unseen demons from the in-between. Fearing death, she calls on Elena to help her beat off the horde long enough for Selena to rise and fight back, ultimately defeating Cain. Selena's grave injuries distract her and a helpless Dorian such that they do not see Cain's approach to finish her off, but Cale intercedes and ultimately kills the brute. Selena is named the King's Champion, and Kaltain, seething at her failure to incapacitate the assassin, is imprisoned for poisoning the champion. For a week, Selena is attended to by Dorian, Nehemia, and Philippa as she recovers, during which the King and Parrington scheme, and Dorian stands up to his father to protect Selena and Cale. Despite their bond, Selena ends her romantic relationship with Dorian, while Cale, ashamed and dejected for murdering Cain, cannot accept comfort from his friends. He only finds hope for the future when he sees Selena and her own happiness at the prospect of her freedom.
Hi there, we're Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously.
I'm Jac.
And I'm Amy.
We embrace and respect modern fantasy, romance, romantasy books written by women. And so it is in our nature to analyze these books as we would any other novel we might have dissected in school.
With our combined 13 years of literary academic training, we use our education to analyze and give voice to reasons you may love or hate today's popular books.
This is part 1 of this week's episode, where we're discussing chapters 49 through 55 of Sarah J. Maas's debut novel, Throne of Glass. For a complete list of episodes and chapter breakdowns, be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. This week, we're discussing chapters 49 through 55 of Sarah J. Maas's debut novel, Throne of Glass. For a complete list of episodes and chapter breakdowns, be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Before we dive in, let's talk about Spilled. Spoilers, perspective and interpretation, language, and themes.
Spoilers. While our discussion is about Throne of Glass, important context from the first 3 novels in the series will be discussed without spoiler warning. That is specifically Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire. This is not a read-along for anyone who hasn't read at least these 3 books. You will be spoiled from here on out, so please take this as your only spoiler warning. For all other book spoilers beyond Heir of Fire and other SJM works, we will keep those at the breadcrumbs and broomsticks section at the end of the episode.
Perspective and interpretation. What we discuss in this episode are strictly our personal interpretation of the text. We do not speak for Sarah J. Maas and in no way know her intentions for her books or characters. We also know our listeners have their own personal views and opinions, and we encourage you to share your thoughts with us because every perspective and interpretation is worth exploring.
Language. Even though I try to keep a swearing to a minimum for my mom, no, I don't. I've given up so long ago. Explicit language does occur.
Themes. We also discuss some heavy subjects throughout the podcast that can include themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. While we will do our best to give trigger warnings for the darker themes, we will discuss these topics when they are important to the text. Listener discretion is advised.
As always, we love keeping the conversation going because our listeners are so good at finding things we've overlooked or completely missed. You can share your interpretation of the text with us by posting on social media, tagging us in stories, sending us DMs, or submitting to the form on our website. It's like booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can check us out. We also post more exclusive content and host live streams for our Patreon supporters. You can find us at patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk.
The question we ask ourselves this week is our question we started with at the beginning of the season. This may be Sarah J. Maas's most epic series and debatably one of the most epic series in the modern fantasy genre. How does the Throne of Glass novel fare as a first novel, and does it adequately set up the rest of the series for us?
The theme we'll see in this section is freedom. I really thought by the episode 10 we would have had the beginning nailed down, and the listeners don't know this because we'll have edited perfectly, but we struggled through that. I struggled.
I started noticing how every time there was an and in the script, you skipped it. There were no ands that were said. Yes.
Really? Bold them next. Didn't know that about me. We will not do any ands here. So we start chapter 49. Just first, give this moment. This is our last episode of Throne of Glass of the first book.
It came up real fast.
It came up so fast. And yet when you think about December to now, which is March 16th, we thought we would be done recording by early February.
Yeah. But life happens.
And here we are. It's exciting. It's, welcome. You've done this journey with us, guys. So let us continue. We start chapter 49 and we are in Dorian's perspective. And at this point, Celaena is getting her ass kicked by the demons that literally no one else can see, except for Cain and Nehemia. Now, remember in the previous episode, Cale went over to Celaena and he put his hand by the chalk line in Dorian. Sorry, I was just saying how I don't say ands, and now I said and I'm in my head about it.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's like the way I didn't realize I said edamame incorrectly. I'm discovering a lot. So this is really important though, because Dorian is just oh my God, I'm not doing anything. And you're going to hear me repeat this a lot throughout this episode because he repeats this a lot. So it's very poignant. It says, quote, "Stop it now," he said to Cale as his friend rose from his spot near the ring. But Cale only gaped at the flailing assassin, his face pale as death. Dorian is the prince here. He's the one who actually can do something. And he's telling Cale, stop it now. He's expecting Cale to be the grown up here and to step in. And what can Cale do that Dorian can't? You know what I mean? Cale only takes orders from the king, but prince means something here. And Dorian is really going to struggle throughout the rest of this episode, but really from the rest of the series, of the fact that he can't do anything. He really gets stuck in many, many ways.
Well, yeah. And I hate when I start with, well, yeah. And yeah, but yeah. Anyway, so we're both in our head today. Dorian has been bred to be complacent, and that is his fatal flaw, but in some ways, also his burden, his trial, because he, up until this point, has probably just not known any better. He's not had anything to fight for. And I feel like this moment is very telling. Dorian ultimately sees Cale as someone who has power, who can get things done, who is able to, kill champions at the drop of a hat or, order guards around. And so in Dorian's eyes, Cale must have more power as captain of the guard and, just being well-trained in general. What Dorian realizes though is that Cale is just as powerless as Dorian. And that's when he gets in his head of, oh, but I should have power. I'm a prince. Of course I should have power.
Yeah. But then he'll flip to the other side of saying, well, at least Cale did something.
Right. Well, yes, because Dorian is going to feel really, really bad about himself. Everyone's going to feel really bad about themselves.
Except for Celaena.
Celaena feels great.
I know. Celena's thriving. She's I'm cutting off boys. I'm almost free. Thriving. 30, flirty, and thriving.
Yeah, she's not there yet.
Not yet.
She currently is on the ground And Dorian watches her, quote, crawl away from Cain, her blood and saliva pooling onto the ground, which this is so terrible, but it gave me this visual of a dog that's been beaten by its owner, like trying to get away from the owner.
No one wants this visual. Everyone is in their car, is washing their dishes right now. They're shaking their head going, Amy.
But am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I hate it. You're right. Because especially since she's been linked to being a dog this entire time. So I see it.
Yep.
It's not your fault. SJM wrote this. Now we are in Celaena's perspective and we can see that the shadow demons are coming at her left, right, and center.
And while this attack is going on, Celaena has this moment of self-pity and thinks, quote, light and darkness, life and death, where do I fit in? The thought sent a jolt through her so strong that her hands fumbled for anything to use against Cain. Not like this. She'd find a way. She could find a way to survive. I really don't like this whole light and darkness, life and death. Where do I fit in? I think it's very, very clunky. It takes me out of the narrative and I just have to put it out there because it doesn't work.
Interesting. Can you tell me more about it?
So if you go to the specific chapter, let me pull it up. I should have pulled it up sooner. So we're in Dorian's point of view. Then it goes to Celaena's point of view. Here the dead surrounded her, waiting. The shadow thing that was Cain stood nearby watching, his burning eyes, his only distinguishing feature. Darkness rippled around Cain like shreds of clothing in the wind. She would die soon. And then she thinks, light and darkness, life and death, where do I fit in? How is that a thought you have when you're about to die?
I mean, it's a very poetic thought for her about to die.
She's not poetic.
No.
It's not Celaena.
You're right. It would be an interesting, if it wasn't her thought, I think it would work more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it's her thought. I agree. That's not a very Celaena thing for her to kind of do or say. I will make a claim later on in this chapter, in the next chapter, when she wins, she kind of starts laughing hysterically. I think she's like ready to call quits in so many times of her life, like not just now, but like even this thing here, it isn't her doing that. Like I think the like light or darkness, life or death, like I can understand what you're saying, where it's like it would make more sense for me if there was another thing of like, you know what, I'm out. I don't know if I can do this anymore. I am so tired of fighting for everything.
Yeah. And I think for me, it just feels like this is a thought maybe the author had a line she wrote and was like, I want to fit this in somewhere. Yeah. And this is where it ended up, because there's lots of references to darkness, but there's no reference to light. There's no reference to life. Celaena's not really ever struggled with this idea of, do I belong in the light versus darkness? It's always been, I'm very comfortable in darkness, right? So it just is incongruent with her thought processes throughout the rest of the novel. Like there was no groundwork to make this thought feel really important or meaningful. Yeah. If she struggled more with the idea of being an assassin, like we know she doesn't like being an assassin, but at the same time, like there wasn't a grappling with it as much as, you know, coming to this conclusion would have had, right? Because light and darkness is like her own morality, right? Like, you know, am I evil? Am I good? And she touches on it, but not to the point where this would have a more significant meaning. I can see what you're saying. Thank you for elaborating. So the door opens. We learn that Hemi is the one who unlocks it. And, quote, from another world, Elena swept down, cloaked in golden light. The ancient queen's hair glittered like a shooting star as she plummeted into Aurelia. So her hair, starlight, you know, we're getting that like same kind of, you know, moonlight, ethereal type of description, but there's also going to be more descriptions to golden light. And I think that's very fascinating, because I think earlier in this book, there's been a lot of establishing that light didn't necessarily mean good, but there is a hard shift by the end of this book where light is going to mean freedom. So, you know, I can have fun with this thinking, okay, well, does that mean, you know, there's almost like freedom for her to be with Kale, you know, since Kale's been associated with light? Is you know, the Kale removed from it completely? So I'm like, ooh, different interpretations that we can shift and change. I must have been in a bad mood when I read this chapter. I think you make a great note, Jack. My note is this moment of Elena coming through and coming to save Selena doesn't feel earned. And Nehemia's explanation later on in this, in a few chapters explains it away, but didn't necessarily make the moment feel earned. It almost felt cartoonish to me. Mm-hmm. There wasn't enough build up to sense that Elena was always close by. Yeah. But on the other side of a door that she was trying to get through. Mm-hmm. Not even in the battle was there this reference to if there's this other power, it's just beyond her reach, or, whatever the case is. Just,
I'll make a point in a couple chapters when Nehemia is like, I've been fighting Cain this whole time. We've been going back and forth, and I've been putting out every demon he comes in, I've been getting rid of. And other than the word marks under Selena's bed, I had the question of, is there enough proof for that? Was there enough clues? And to your point here, if Nehemia had looked over Selena's shoulder at one point and kind of been like, if she had kind of brushed her forehead or something saying, oh, I thought I saw something there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the groundwork. I'm trying to find groundwork for you.
Yeah, Nehemia has stared at Selena's forehead as if there's a mark there. She has done that earlier in the book. Okay. But it's this idea that, Elena only came to Selena in dreams or on Sam Hewen.
Yeah.
And there was not enough reference to Selena trying to access Elena any other time for this to make sense, because later Elena's going to say, you knew when you called that I would come. But how did she know? She doesn't. She's never tried that before.
Well, and you get a whole section of Selena being annoyed that Elena hadn't visited her in a while earlier in the book. Before Elena comes and visits her to tell her about the poison, she was still no sign from Elena type thing. So it's not so maybe I'm just saying evidence of Elena not showing up when she called.
Yes.
But let's keep going. So Selena and the reader are seeing Elena. I hate the repetitiveness of it. But they're seeing her differently for the first time. Quote, through fading eyes, Selena saw a crown of stars glittering atop of Elena's head, her silver armor shining like a beacon in the blackness. At this point, we are seeing not just a queen, but a fighter. This makes her request to Selena different at the beginning of this whole series, right? Of this book, where she says, hey, I'm going to need you to fight, and really rally for me. And it's not just a queen saying this. This is a warrior saying it to another warrior. Also, consistency, crown of stars.
Which I don't know why it took me until this chapter to be like, oh, that's why Dorian's associated with stars.
Yeah.
Because he's her descendant. And he's always, when Selena interacts with him, it's starlight shot through her, there were stars in his eyes, etc. So
good point. I missed that.
That was
too.
my note.
Yeah, good note. Elena then draws a mark on Selena's forehead to help her purify the poison from her body. And this is very similar to when the little girl at the temple marks Selena. And if you remember, that little girl, Selena was at the temple and she was like, please don't mark my forehead. She comes in, marks her forehead. And we talked about that little girl kind of almost representing her own childhood, the younger version of her. And I almost like this where it's maybe it's kind of a callback of her own childhood, her own younger self purifying her from her deeds of being an assassin.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I do like that, this idea of it's her past, including her own, as we know, and is alluded to in this episode, her ancestor purifying Selena of what's taken place up until this point. We then move into chapter 50, and this is the point where Selena is starting to be poison free. The in-between has kind of faded away, and she is very, very hurt. As she stands, quote, the wind caressed her face and swept her hair behind her in a billowing sheet of gold. I will not be afraid. A mark burned on her forehead in blinding blue light. Now, in chapter 49, we didn't discuss it, but one of the magics that Elena uses is wind magic. And so there are a couple references to wind here and in later chapters that I wonder if they are meant to be references to Elena. Does she in some ways embody the wind, or the wind embody her? Because this moment feels like Elena kind of like caressing her, encouraging her, and saying goodbye.
I mean, and it's very much like when the tapestry moved, right? And there was that rose-scented wind and everything.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Good point.
Selena gathers the strength to fight and defeat Cain. When she does so, quote, Selena shot forward as fast as an arrow of Diana. Now, this is a callback to Yulmus, the same scene that Jack just spoke about, where the child dressed as Diana marked Selena and gave her the golden arrow. And I feel like that action is, in fact, like Jack said, mirrored here by Elena marking Selena, but this time Selena becomes the arrow instead of being just gifted the arrow.
And she accepts it.
She accepts it.
Last time she was ready to sell it.
Right. But this time she accepts it. And it's also a breadcrumb for future events. And lastly, I have to point out now, I know as avid SJM readers, we all know the signs of evil in SJM's writings. They're pretty consistent from book to book and series to series. But this is her debut novel. So I have to call out those monikers when they appear, because this is technically the first time they ever appear. So when Selena looks at Cain, quote, she could have sworn his eyes glowed like coals. Now, this lore is important, as I said, to the entire series and SJM's writing in general. So we have to call it out. It's established, and now we may move on.
I mean, it's almost guaranteed that when SJM says, it's almost like, and it's like, yep, it is. It is
She
fact.
could have sworn. Yeah.
And it is fact. I mean, it's interesting because she's gotten herself so into that now that I wonder if she thinks about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, right? Selena, even now that the poison's gone and she is super injured, she's still with just like a little blunt end of a stick, she still kicks his ass and she's able to kill him, but
kicks whose ass?
Cain's ass. It's who we've been talking about. Yes. Kicks Cain's ass. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure it's clear.
Okay. Yeah. She kicks Cain's ass and, quote, for a heartbeat, she considered killing him right there. So he couldn't tell anyone what he knew about her parents, about the word marks and their power. If the king knew any of that, her hand trembled with the effort to keep from diving the spearhead into his neck. But Selena lifted her bruised face to the king. I feel like this speaks volumes about her character. She has every reason to kill him. And that's more than just him knowing her secrets, mainly because he's a mass murderer and a serial killer of kinds. Like, I would say the first reason to kill him is the fact that he's evil, and a monster who can summon demons. Throwing that out there. But we've also, and then you have the fact that he has her secrets. I wonder if she would have been more comfortable killing him if he didn't have her secrets. Because now, because I feel like she sees it personal, right? Like she looks at this and is like, I think she realizes that she wants to kill him because some of the motivation is keeping his secrets, or is for her to like him to have her secrets die with him, which then makes it for her clock it of being more of a personal death rather than a quote unquote justified death. Right. And I think that's why she looks at the king in this moment, because she is differentiating herself and thinking, I am different.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thought. I had never thought of it that way.
Yeah. I didn't think of it that way until I started talking. So,
amazing how that happens.
I know. It's like people realized how much it's on the fly sometimes. Like we take so many notes, but sometimes. Selena winning sets the beginning of her path in her mind, right? To freedom. And she's not wrong, except this is going to be a much larger path consisting of 6 more books. And it's like, woo, you're free, but it's going to take a long time to get there.
Yes, it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. And it's all around very overwhelming for her. Quote, huddled on the ground, hot tears slid down Selena's face. She'd won. Through the pain, Selena began laughing. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, this feels very hysterical laughter for her. I mean, if you think about it, at this point of her life, how many times that she's almost died, right? From her childhood to getting in prison to her entire career as an assassin. And like, here's another moment of like, holy shit, I lived again. And I'm sure it's kind of that hysterical of like, I have to keep going. We're going to continue this. Okay.
It does feel like one of those where it's like, if I don't laugh, I'll cry, and I'd rather laugh because I'd rather they think I'm crazy than I'm weak.
Yeah. Which sucks because then the king gives her shit about crying later.
Yeah, of course. Asshole. Right before this moment, Selena noticed that, quote, Dorian, as if released from a spell, dashed to her, throwing himself to his knees beside her, murmuring her name again and again. I like to think that there's a little bit of a parallel between Selena being poisoned and Dorian's own self-restraint up until this point. In its own way, his restraint and this, he's in fight, flight, or freeze mode, and really he just froze. And it's almost a poison of his own making because of the fear he has towards his father, the fear he has towards doing the wrong thing, and genuinely his inability to stand up for anyone or anything.
Yeah.
And so in this moment, just like Selena has been purified of her poison, I feel like Dorian has been purified of that restraint that he's put on himself, that self-imposed restraint, because this is a turning point for him. He's been released, and we're going to see, as much as he belittles himself, it's because he wants to be different now.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. His journey is also a sad, weird journey too.
So sad.
Yeah. And that's because Dorian is a very sad boy. He was sad from the first moment we saw him. He loves being sad. He is the very definition of the torture poets department. He loves to torture himself. Quote, he should have stopped it when Cain first hit her. He should have done something other than watch when she had so clearly been drugged. She would have helped him. She wouldn't have hesitated. Kale even had helped her. He knelt down beside the edge of the ring. And it's like, yes, yes, the answer to all that is yes. He does give points that if he had interfered, then the king would have been like, she's disqualified. She loses, right? So there are valid reasons as to why he didn't do something, but there's small ways of support that he really could have shown. That's his champion. He could have cheered for her, he could have called out for her, but Selena's mentality of her is I'm free. And then that's her whole journey throughout the whole series is how to become free. His is also struggling with, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't help. I want to help. I want to do something, and I cannot do anything.
Yeah. Which again, it's just a sign of growth for him. Him realizing he's a pacifist.
Yeah.
And that he lacks power. And that makes him pathetic. And he realizes just how pathetic he is now.
You were not happy when you were writing this.
I was not.
He is a pathetic asshole little bitch boy. All right, well, continue. Would you write your notes? Yeah, you wrote your notes yesterday.
Yeah,
all
but
right.
I copied and pasted from my notes on the train. So I must have been upset that I was going to work when I wrote my notes.
You start your metaphors. Dorian is like the office gossip who just can't keep it to themselves. Amy, what's that?
An ad break.
We'll be right back.
Nice. One of the reasons why I'm an avid listener of audiobooks is because the stories and the fantasies live rent-free in my head and block out the noise of that to-do list I have at work. You can join me because with Dipsy Stories, you can trade mundane thoughts for spicy narratives that will make you feel like you're living in a romance novel.
Dipsy is the female-founded app for spicy audiobooks and more. It's created by women for the female gaze.
Their app has over 1,000 spicy audiobooks, all crafted by a team of professional writers and top-tier narrators.
Whether you're looking for a rugged cowboy or a Scottish actor, a sexy rendition of Pride and Prejudice, or the god of the underworld, you'll find characters you'll love on Dipsy.
With their easy-to-explore app, you can search for your favorite romance genres like contemporary, historical, dark, sports, western, romantasy, sapphic, and more.
New chapters are released every week, so you'll always find something new to enjoy.
Right now, listeners of the show can get an extended 30-day free trial. Just go to dipsystories.com/booktalk to start your free trial.
That's DIPSEA stories.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK for 30 days of full access for free.
Visit dipsystories.com/booktalk.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra is giving you the chance to win tickets to the NBA Finals. That's right, the 2025 NBA Finals. Just head to MichelobUltra.com/NBA Finals. Michelob Ultra Courtside NBA Finals Sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents, excluding Maryland residents. 21 up. Begins at 9 a.m. EST on February 16th, 2025. Ends on May 5th, 2025. See official rules at MichelobUltra.com/rules for price and details. Message and data rates may apply. Void where prohibited.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Switch to Verizon Business and get more from your internet without paying more for your internet. Get LTE Business Internet starting at $39 a month when paired with a Business Unlimited smartphone plan. That's unlimited data, and with it, unlimited possibilities. Start saving today with Verizon Business, ranked #1 in small business internet customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Starting price for 25 megabits per second internet plan with savings, plus taxes, fees, and economic adjustment charge. Terms apply. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
All right, so back to the story, though. We have a writing moment that I don't remember SJM doing prior to this, where she switches POV in like mid-sentence. Now, there was that moment where she kind of like hints to, we call it inconsistency chapters ago, but it wasn't like a flat out shift. So I'm just more like calling these out for the writers out there to be able to appreciate. Quote, Dorian glanced towards Kaltain and Parrington. In doing so, he missed the look exchanged between Kane and his father. The soldier pulled out his dagger, but Cale saw. Kane raised his dagger to strike the girl in the back. And then at that point, we get into Cale's point of view. And it's a good example as to why third person can be easier in these moments, right? Because if you're in the first person, you become very limited on what the character is doing, on like what the character can see. So by doing this, and you're able to, we talk about third person being very narrow and being farther back. So this is a good example of starting as a narrow third person, kind of taking a shift back and being able to switch. I think she did it very seamlessly in this one.
Yeah, I think she does a very good job in this moment. And I like to think of it like being the camera on a film set, right? We're not literally in Dorian's point of view, right? We're not literally looking through Dorian's eyes. We're the camera on his shoulder. And the camera has now shifted to be on Cale's shoulder in the moment, which is very cinematic. Yeah. And does allow the author and the narrator more flexibility in telling a complete story, which I think she does well here.
Yeah. I was on a first date last night, as Amy knows. Will not be going on a second date, although he kept asking me the name of the podcast, and I was like, sure, there's a lot of content, but, hope he doesn't listen. Anyway.
Did you tell him the name?
Yeah. But I was like, good luck remembering. 2, good luck listening. There's so much stuff. Anyway, but one of the things that I was talking to him about was like the freedom that third person past tense gives you. And I was giving an example like Onyx Storm, which is going to be part of our spring book club. So you'll hear more of our thoughts on that sometimes that first person, especially present tense, really limits you. And, so just something for, the writers out there to consider, because I know writers like to listen to this podcast. So yeah, now we're officially in Cale's point of view, and we see him make his first kill ever. Quote, Cale leapt between them and plunged his sword through Kane's heart. Blood erupted everywhere, showering Cale's arms, his head, his clothes. I could really picture this. It's as if like the blood has been building up inside of Kane, like all the people all the warriors that he's killed has been absorbed into him. Like we know he's taken their power. Then it's like, oh shit, he's been taking their blood too. Like you can kind of just see this explosion onto Cale. But also this is a big shift for Cale, right? His mindset has been completely changed. He's about to kind of go in his own little spiral. Who he is as a person has shifted. And in a way, you could almost view the blood as baptismal, because he's now entered this other type of club, right? He's entered the I've killed someone club, which, like, you know, you're the guard.
Captain of the guard. I'm shocked it hasn't happened before now.
Like, talk about like us having zero sympathy. Like, no, you kill someone. They're captain of the guard. Suck it up. It's
seriously.
It's very easy for me to have lack of sympathy without me being in there with actually killing. But like, evil man. I would like to imagine if I saved your life, Amy, I would have zero regrets.
I like to think that too.
Yeah. That I'd have zero regrets, or you'd have zero regrets.
I'd have zero. I know us, and we'd be like, I should feel guilty, but no, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel guilty.
We'd cover it in therapy once.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually sleeping really well.
Yeah, I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
Now, Cale will say, and in this moment, the narration says, and he will say later as well, that he doesn't understand how or why he did this, right? He just kind of acted on instinct. And in some ways you can think, well, he doesn't know his own heart. Like, if he knew his own heart, he would understand, like, I'm doing this because I love Selena and I want to protect her. I'm not going to let her die. So again, I mean, he and Selena both are kind of struggling to understand themselves. But at the end of the day, if he can't understand he loves Selena and that's why he's protecting her, I don't think they're going to work. However, I do want to say, knowing that maybe at one point Cale was supposed to be endgame, this moment also feels very mate coded. That primal protectiveness that mates have, that they can't control themselves. That's how this read to me, which makes me wonder if it was put there to be that, to allude to that at one point and never taken out.
Yeah, I completely agree, because we know SJM is consistent in her writing. And when there is I was so protective, I didn't even know what I was doing, you know, like when it's just instinct completely takes over like that. You know, you have instinct that took over Cale, who now I'm trying not to reference because we said breadcrumbs and broomsticks for later. So I'm going to be alluding to things, but think about another series that she has where one character is literally crawling across the floor trying to get to another character. And we find out about them being mates. That you can't, like, Selena being like her ass getting kicked and Cale like trying to reach out to her, trying to get to her as much as he possibly can, and then saving her like this. We know that originally he was endgame. That shifts, that changes. However, you can't tell me that this isn't, you know, like there wasn't that moment where SJM was writing this. And I think people don't realize, like, you know, the characters changed the story. Yeah. Somewhere along the ways, then the characters kind of changed their mind. And I have no doubt she was writing, being like, oh my God, this is different.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm happy you point out the maid coded thing. Dorian, though, is absolutely wrecked about not being there for Selena. In fact, we will continue to talk about it over and over and over again. Quote, he hated himself for not acting, for standing like a damn coward. He would make it up to her. He would see to it that she was freed. After that.
So Dorian doesn't finish his sentence. And usually in SJM's writing, granted, this is her first book compared to the rest, but in her later books, when a character is not willing to finish the thought, it's because they do not like the answer. And in my mind, Dorian not being able to finish this thought is not because he doesn't want to be with Selena. I think he knows he is unworthy of her and is unwilling to admit that to himself.
Yeah, because like you said, it's when it's not normally, you're not able to admit it, right? And that's like with SJM's writing, especially, but also like other times in other writing. I think that's a very safe thing to say of, like, you know, it trickles off. The immediate continuation of the quote is he was done with politics and intrigue. He loved her, and no empire, no king, and no earthly fear would keep him from her. No, if they tried to take her from him, he'd rip the world apart with his bare hands. And for some reason that didn't terrify him. So that after that ... and not being able to answer that ... but then being willing to say he loved her, it definitely makes me question of how much of those feelings are valid. You know, I think he does love her in his own way. I think that he loves the feeling she gives him. I think he loves the fact that he wants to be a better man. And I think that's like what he gets from her is like, wow, with you, I actually feel like it's possible for me to be a better person. And like, I can actually reach for the stars and be a king. But does he love Selena herself?
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think the answer at the end of the day is no. He loves the idea of her, right? He's always been infatuated with the idea of her, whether she represented rebellion or in this case now she represents him striving to be better, to be that better man, right? Yeah. She's the carrot that makes him run after, or pursue this life of, I'm no longer going to be a pacifist.
Mm-hmm.
I can't actually name one thing he actually likes about her.
Yeah.
That we know of, right? There's never been a thought of like, oh, he really loved this XYZ about her.
Yeah.
And that's okay. He can still love her, but it's not romantic love.
Yeah.
Right?
My excitement made me choke on spit. Yes, completely. I agree.
And it works. I love the angst of this moment and how we're being set up for Selena to break up with Dorian.
Yeah.
But what I love the most, I think, is the journey that they go on to have this very platonic relationship.
Yeah. And it sets itself up for a platonic relationship.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I think friends are a great example of wanting to be inspired by friends. Like, when we have writer friends and we talk to them, I'm always like so hyped. I'm like, I'm going to write too, or I think like friendships really shows that you can be inspired by people. Not that you can't be inspired by a romantic partner. Like, that's totally possible. But Cale listed many times what he admired about her, actual things that he could list. And we never got that from Dorian. So, I wonder if people are mad at us by now about this.
I think that I love all of this right now about Dorian because this really sets him on a path that unfortunately is going to cause him a lot of pain, but makes him a better person.
Yeah.
And I love this turning point. And I also feel like at the end of the day for Dorian and Selena, they feel like soulmate friends.
Yes.
You know how you have, other than the two of us, Jack, we all have a friend that we're like, I need you in a past life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're my soulmate, but not in a romantic way.
Yes.
And I do feel like Dorian and Selena are that. And
I agree.
In a lot of ways, their ancestry sets them up for that as well.
I agree. Oh, so well said. All right. Let's continue. You covered everything you needed to. So now we're in Caltain's point of view, and we are seeing just how much she's been set up, right? And I'm going to jump a little bit ahead here because, I'm already, sitting here fighting off people who are just like, this is proof that she's evil. Because later on, Parrington, when he's talking to the king's going to be like, did you use that ring on her? And then Parrington's like, nah, I didn't do anything. Like, this is like, I stopped doing that because it was starting to become a little obvious. Well, all right, here's proof that maybe we shouldn't trust the lying evil man. Just saying that. Quote, the pain in her head erupted, so violent that her vision went obsidian, and she stopped thinking clearly. What else is obsidian and dark? The ring. She then, like, from... like, she is very clearly like being manipulated by the Duke at this very moment to start giving herself up and being like, what? Like, hey, the poison didn't work. Why would she start doing that in front of everyone?
Right. No, even though she's not the most cunning, she has had enough smarts to use situations to her advantage. Think of when she interacted with the Queen. This totally feels like retaliation and manipulation by Parrington because he didn't get his way. So he needs to make sure somebody else takes the fall for his plans being interrupted.
Yeah. And then, to go more into that quote, trying to keep her voice down, even as the pain in her head turned into a thunderous roar. She could scarcely think straight. She could only answer to the fury inside of her. The damn poison I gave her, she murmured so only Parrington could hear. Poison? Parrington asked so loud, Caltain's eyes grew wide. It's almost, I would almost argue that Parrington knew that Caltain was going to get caught no matter what. No matter if Selena died or lived. I don't think he planned on Selena living, but if Selena had died, I still think he would have given up Caltain. And part of that is going to be because of his excitement to, more to abuse her when she's in prison, in the dungeons.
Yep. Which he alludes to later on. I just think of his ruddy, pocked hands now every time I think of him because he's so slimy.
Yeah.
He's awful. He is the worst of men.
Absolutely.
Now, this is Kaltain's view of what's happening when Parrington tells the guards to restrain her and take her away. Quote, "Restrain her, please," the Duke said blandly, calmly, as if she were no more than a hysterical servant, as if she were nobody. This is the literal worst thing that could possibly happen to Kaltain. It is the exact opposite of her ambition. She is the ultimate loser, right? Selena has won her freedom. She has won the right to be the king's champion and ultimately her freedom. And so Kaltain is in the exact opposite state, right? There has to be balance. And in this case, Kaltain's on the losing end. We see that repeated in the way that the men treat her, right? On Selena's side, Chaol killed Cain to protect Selena, and Dorian has whisked her up and carried her in a bridal carry to get her healed. For Kaltain, though, she realizes, quote, Parrington had been planning this for too long, and she'd played right into his hands. He'd acted the besotted fool only to plunge a dagger into her back. This could have been Dorian, right?
Yeah.
Dorian could have done this to Selena if he wanted to gain favor with his father. But instead he didn't. He fell in love with her. He wanted to use her, but he developed feelings, which is the exact opposite of Parrington, who pretended to have feelings so that he could use Kaltain. They are the perfect opposites of each other.
Yes. Yeah.
And that continues to be the case here. They are both going to be used as weapons in future books, and one gets their freedom and the other does not.
Yeah, it's so sad. We're in chapter 51, and Dorian is in a meeting with his dad, and the king's wondering, why should I sign the contract with Selena? And the king says, quote, "She was rather disgraceful at the duel. I don't know if I can have a blubbering woman as my champion, poison or no." And, even while poisoned, women can't cry. And like she was like, oh, she was poisoned and had her ass kicked and was about to die. Ugh, how uncouth.
Yeah. She's bleeding from an artery in her thigh and she has broken ribs. Ugh, whatever.
Jeez. Yeah. It's like, it's like, hey, he's evil. There's no redemption here.
Yeah. The king continues to mock Selena and Dorian, and Chaol. I don't remember. The king mocks Selena and belittles Dorian, and maybe there's some mocking of Chaol too. I can't remember. Quote, "I brought her, Selena, here to do my bidding, not to meddle in the life of my son and empire." And this felt a lot like Dorian being upset about his purebred dog who fooled around with a mutt and had puppies that were not purebred. It feels a lot like the queen wanting to make sure Dorian is with a worthwhile woman who is a princess. It's the exact same thing. The king is viewing Selena as messing around with the lives of the purebreds. What I love about this moment is that Dorian literally bares his teeth in response, showing that he is as much of a dog as Selena in some ways. And for the first time, willing to show his protectiveness, which, again, is growth.
Yeah, I just realized something, and I'm going to say this without any kind of spoilers or anything like that, but I think that it's a good clue for what's to come, in the sense that, that the king says, "I brought her here to do my bidding." He didn't. Dorian did. So I think that's a good moment of, the reader should ask themselves, why does the king feel like he was the one who brought her there to do his bidding?
Yeah.
So,
Good
just
point.
pay attention to like what's actually being said and what's being claimed. And, I think one of the best things that SJM does is like unforgivable evil characters are sexist. Like, that's always kind of like a good sign of, are they sexist? Or, and if the answer is yes, then normally there's like a no redemption arc for them. And I think to me, that's like, we should do that more often in our books. So here's what the king says, quote, "What a politician she would have made if she'd been born a man. And that is his compliment to Selena. And it just reminds me of Philippa telling Selena that she was so pretty that she might have been able to marry a lord or a prince if she just wasn't who she was.
Mm-hmm. It's just gross.
It's so gross. Dorian feels ready to finally make a stand, even though it's very small. Quote, perhaps he might someday work up the nerve to demand retribution for what his father had done to those rebels in Eelway. Not today, not yet, but he could make a start. And then he's like, Daddy, can you not let Parrington hurt Nehemia, use her? And it's like, oh, someone put their big boy pants on. I just feel like it just felt like such an underwhelming moment because he was like, not today, not tomorrow, but I can start. And it felt like the most bare minimum thing to have asked.
Yeah, but that's Dorian.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a huge step for him, for someone who's done nothing. I get it. I know I'm being harsh, guys, but it just felt like such a guy move for me where it's like, sometimes guys are just like, wow, I'm making an effort. And it's like, you did barely anything.
Yeah. You did below par what I would expect.
Great. You put away the dishes that you use because you needed to use a dish. You do not get points for that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I know we're harping on Dorian, but I will give him kudos. He is using his words and logic to overcome what Parrington has been doing, his scheming and his just evil agenda in general. And so it is a small way for Dorian to claim his power. He is a leader, and in his role as a leader, he has to use words to utilize his power over others. And this is one small way that Dorian has succeeded in doing so. And it's important for his journey that he's able to speak up in this moment. I also want to recognize that when Dorian was thinking about Nehemia earlier, while he was talking to his father, quote, Dorian couldn't deny that he greatly admired the princess for daring to play in the first place. And what he's talking about is Nehemia providing Selena with her staff from Eelway and the symbolism of it for Selena to fight Cain with that staff. This, again, feels like growth. Dorian has been viewing Nehemia mostly negatively for her defiance, for her association with rebels. Not that he blames her, but that, it would be really messy if she and Selena spent a lot of time together. They're going to cause a lot of trouble. But now he's like, you know what? Good for you. Good for you for trying to cause trouble. And I point this out because, again, have to give Dorian credit where we can. But we also have to recognize Selena is not the only character to have developed in this book. Dorian's development has been small, but important.
Yes.
And obviously Chaol has grown a lot too.
Yeah. Agreed. We should give props where props are due. But lots more props to SJM for developing her characters. Dorian, even then I don't give Dorian credit. I give his creator credit. I could leave this in the breadcrumb section, but this is a shorter episode, so I'm going to talk about it here. Nehemia and Selena have a talk and why Selena was able to see what she saw, right? And they say, quote, I don't think Heltane intended that effect, but it reacted to your blood in that way. Magic calls to magic. Selena shifted uncomfortably at the words. And it's like, she's kind of like, hey, magic calls to magic. Maybe you got some magic. Maybe you got magic. Yeah.
So since we're talking about breadcrumbs, there's another one when Selena is thinking about the fact that she continues to have dreams. Quote, her dreams last night had been filled with Nehemia and Elena. We learned from Nehemia that she's the one who helped open the door for Elena to come through and help Selena. We don't yet quite understand just how connected Nehemia and Elena are. And so it feels very breadcrumby for Selena to be dreaming of the two of them together.
Yeah. Yep.
Just putting that out there.
Love it. Nehemia tells Selena that she spent months banishing Cain's demons. And we don't have to go back too much on this, but that was my question of was there a lot of clues? I think we already kind of talked about build up and setup there. Now,
and the answer is no, there were no fucking clues.
Yeah, I would have liked her fighting more.
This is a cop-out. This isn't the cool, Dumbledore revealed at the end how he was involved the whole time.
Yeah.
Because that work was done. This Nehemia was just not there. And absence does not equate to setup.
Yeah, truth. Oh, that hit hard. Absence does not equate to setup. I hope everyone takes note of that. I think it's absolutely valid. And I know sometimes like authors get worried that it's going to be caught too early. And I think you're better off with clues that might be too obvious versus there being no clue at all. And you're just like, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah. I'd rather see it coming from a mile away than to not see it at all.
Yeah. Agreed. Now, at one point in their conversation, Nehemia calls Selena Elentia, and it's her special name. And by using Selena's new name, while she's being honest, I think that it's kind of like that moment of, I can be even more honest with you because I'm calling you by the name of what I like in my language and what I would call my people. So I think that it just is another good example of use of names and titles.
Yep. I agree. At the end of the scene, Nehemia asks Selena if she can walk fleetfoot, quote, "Do you mind if I take her for a walk? I need to feel the wind on my face today." Now, this goes back to this idea of the wind representing Elena and the knowledge that we have, which is a breadcrumb, that Nehemia and Elena are connected. So in this moment, it feels like, or I ask myself the question, is Nehemia going to commune with Elena, to communicate with Elena?
Yes. Good job. Wow. Good job training you. Good. That's a pat on the shoulder.
Actually, that was me on your couch last night.
Oh, good job, couch.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Stick around for part 2, which airs on Thursday.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would also love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Bye. I'm saving this for the recording so that the listeners may know that I struggled to wash my face today because of you. I couldn't lift my arms. I literally held my hand. I had my hands could only go up to here being like just above boob level. And I just like threw my face in my hands and like moved it around. And that's how I washed my hands.
You motorboated your own hands.
Yep, that's accurate. I just like couldn't. I couldn't. And then I was in my shower, I was like joking around with myself, and I'm like, I have had it up to here, and I can't go any higher than this. But I have had it up to much higher than where my hands can go.
That's so funny. One of the coffee shops near me,
mm-hmm.
It's matcha with tonic water and lemon peel. It is so good.
Where's that at?
It's called Amp Coffee.
Is it easy parking?
It's on Lancashire, so not really.
Mm-mm.
But actually, there is easy parking across the street.
If I have to cross the street, I'm out.
I walk there from my apartment, so I have no empathy.
It's because I told you I didn't have empathy for you for tomorrow earlier. It's because of retaliation of your lack of empathy for me. We are not empathetic.
Yeah, we're both like, I worked out hard. I have no empathy for anyone or anything.
We're just general. Well, I mean, we've seen all those like studies find that friends that harass each other
are better friends.
Yeah.